So question 2 can kind of seem complicated. It can kind of seem complicated, but you just sort of have to just try and understand it. Because, okay, so basically you've got two companies, right? You've got Magpie PLC, that's one of the companies. And you've got another company called Thrush PLC. So you've got Magpie PLC and Thrush PLC. And they're similar because they both want to borrow 100 million for 10 years. Okay, Magpie wants to borrow 100 million for 10 years, and Thrush also requires 100 million for 10 years. So they both want to borrow 100 million for 10 years, right? And Magpie, the company Magpie, they can borrow at a fixed rate of 6%. Okay, they can borrow at fixed 6%, or they could borrow at floating rates of LIBOR plus 50. So LIBOR plus 50 just means LIBOR plus 0.5%. I wrote it here. So 50 BP is 0.5%. And LIBOR is an unknown. So for the first question, they're just asking us draw a diagram. So if you draw a diagram, you can just write LIBOR. But in the second question, they tell you they'll give you what LIBOR is. LIBOR is 6.75%. LIBOR is an actual number. But we're saying LIBOR, basically it's an unknown figure. So it's almost like saying you're borrowing at P plus 6% or P or Y plus 9%. You know, it's an unknown. But the idea is that Magpie wants to borrow 100 million from the bank. And Thrush wants to borrow 100 million from the bank. So they're two companies that want to borrow 100 million. Okay, and Magpie can borrow at fixed rate of 6%, or they can borrow at LIBOR plus 0.5%. But Magpie what they want to do is they want to borrow at floating rate of interest. They want to borrow at the floating. They want to borrow at LIBOR plus 0.5%. They don't want to borrow at fixed. Okay, they don't want to borrow at fixed. But Thrush, on the other hand, they also want to borrow 100 million. They can borrow at fixed rate of 7.8%. They can borrow at fixed of 7.8%, or they can borrow at LIBOR plus 120, so plus 1.2%. I wrote it here. So they can borrow at fixed of 7.8, or they can borrow at a floating rate of LIBOR plus 1.2%. And they would prefer to pay the fixed amount. So they would rather pay fixed 7.8%. And Magpie would rather pay floating plus LIBOR plus 0.5%. So two companies, and they want to borrow some money. The current 10-year swaps are 5.9% and 6.1%. So this is the bank. So we have a financial intermediary, and we have to basically draw a diagram. Okay, so we have to draw a diagram. So let me try and draw the diagram, see if we can just explain it a bit better. So we have two companies. Okay, we have Magpie. This box is Magpie. Okay, so we have Magpie, and we have another company called Thrush PLC. Put them here. Thrush PLC, Magpie PLC. Okay. And in the middle, we have this financial intermediary, sort of like a bank. They're both borrowing from the bank. So this is sort of like the bank, or the financial intermediary bank. Okay, so Magpie PLC. Well, Magpie PLC, we said that Magpie PLC, they can borrow at fixed of 6%, or they can borrow at LIBOR plus 0.5%. Okay, but so Magpie can borrow at 6%, and Thrush can borrow at fixed 7.8%. But because Magpie can borrow at the less amount, they can borrow fixed 6%, whereas Thrush is paying a lot higher. We say just because of financial efficiency, we have to let Magpie borrow at the fixed 6%, even though they want to borrow LIBOR. So it says they want to borrow LIBOR, but we're just going to have to make them borrow fixed. And we're going to do what this whole thing is. It's called basically a swap. It's an interest rate swap. So when you do this, at the end, they're going to end up borrowing what they want to do. So you can basically see it at the end. But right now, we're just going to have to see, okay, Magpie can borrow at fixed 6%. Thrush can borrow at fixed 7.8%. Because Magpie can borrow less at fixed percent 6, we're going to have to let Magpie borrow 6%, and Thrush is going to have to borrow at the floating, because they can't borrow at fixed because Magpie's already borrowed at fixed. So Thrush are going to have to borrow at floating rate LIBOR 1 plus 2%. Okay, we have to let Magpie borrow 6% because it's the less amount. It's just financial efficiency. So we have Magpie, we have the bank, and we have Thrush. So what Magpie wants to do, Magpie wants, okay, just right on top, what does Magpie want? Magpie wants to borrow floating rate. They want the LIBOR. Magpie wishes to raise this finance paying the floating rate. So they want LIBOR plus 0.5%, okay? So this is what they want. They want LIBOR plus 0.5%. So we put what they want on top. Thrush PLC. Thrush PLC, what do they want? Thrush PLC can borrow at fixed, or they can borrow at LIBOR, and they want to pay fixed. So Thrush wants to borrow from the bank at the fixed 7.8%. So Thrush PLC, what do they want? They want fixed 7.8%. Okay, and we're telling Magpie they have no choice. They have to borrow at fixed, and they want 100 million, so they have to borrow at 6%. 100 million. They want to borrow 100 million. They have to borrow it at 6% because financial efficiency, it's cheaper. Magpie, that means because Magpie is borrowing at 6%, that means Frush has no choice, but they have to borrow floating. And what is floating? Their floating is LIBOR plus 1.2%. Okay, their amount is LIBOR plus 1.2%. Magpie has to borrow at 6. Magpie wants LIBOR plus 0.5%. Frush wants fixed 7.8%. Okay, so this is the diagram. So question A is just telling us draw the diagram and show the cost savings. So we'll get there. So this is question A. So just do A on the side. Okay, and so there's something else. There's another clue in the question. The question here says the current 10-year swap rates are 5.9% and 6.1%. So this is how much the bank wins. So the bank's got to make money. So we've got 6.1%, 5.9%. So if we just draw arrows, so Frush, from Frush to the bank, 6.1%. So Frush is paying the bank 6.1%. The bank is going to pay to Magpie 5.9%. Okay, so 6.1% is going into the bank, 5.9 is going out. What does that mean? That means the bank is winning 0.2%. The difference is 0.2. That means the bank is winning 0.2%. So now we know why the bank is involved. Obviously, they want to make they're gonna win 0.2%. Okay, now we just we have to look. Okay, so wait. First of all, so we've got 6.1 and 5.9, but we've also got opposite arrows. Okay, and this is something you have to remember. There's also opposite arrows. And Magpie is paying the bank LIBOR. So, and it doesn't tell you this in the question, and this is something I just memorized. Like, I remember the first time he showed me this, I was so confused, but it just makes sense. Like, after a while, if you look at it again and again, it makes sense. So 6.1% is going into the bank, 5.9% is coming out. So the bank gets 0.2%, but we have to have opposite arrows as well. So the opposite arrows is going to be LIBOR. So Magpie is paying the bank LIBOR. We don't know what LIBOR is, it's unknown. And the bank is paying Frush LIBOR. That's it. So this is basically your diagram. This is all you have to draw. What do they want? What does Magpie want? What does Frush want? What are we forcing Magpie to do? We're forcing them to borrow at 6 because it's cheaper. We're forcing Frush to do the different one, the LIBOR, the floating rate, okay? And then we're looking at this bit here. This bit here is telling us about the bank, the current 10-year swap. So this is how much the bank wins. So 6.1% is going into the bank, 5.9 is coming out of the bank. So the bank gets their 0.2%. And then when we remember to do these arrows, we've got to remember to do the opposing arrows, the arrows of the opposite side, and just label them LIBOR. That's it, just label them LIBOR. And now we need to look at, so we've drawn the diagram, but now we need to look at the net cost. So show with calculations the diagram, but also show how the swap will enable each company to have the interest rate they require at a lower rate. Okay, so I'm going to try and explain that. So Magpie, so let's look at Magpie PLC first. So Magpie PLC. Okay, so Magpie PLC, we're telling them they're borrowing at 6%. Okay, so they're borrowing at 6%. That's fine. So they're borrowing at 6%. Okay, and and then another way you have to look at it. All the arrows that are coming out, we're adding. All the arrows that are coming in, we're taking away. Okay, so the arrows that are coming out, we're adding. So you have to remember this as well. The arrows that are going out, we're adding. The stuff that's coming in, we're taking away. So we're adding LIBOR, so 6%. So we're forcing them to borrow at 6%. So we've got 6%. LIBOR is coming out, so that means we're adding LIBOR, add LIBOR, okay, add LIBOR, that's our second bit, and then 5.9 is coming in, so that means we're taking it away. You just kind of have to remember it like this. So we're taking away 5.9%. So what is their net cost? So we've got three things. We've got 6% plus LIBOR minus 5.9%. So we have LIBOR 6% minus 5.9%. So 6% minus 5.9% is 0.1%. So Magpie's net cost is LIBOR, 6% minus 5.9% is 0.1%. So at the end, Magpie is paying LIBOR plus 0.1%. But what did Magpie want at the start? Magpie wanted to borrow LIBOR at 0.5%. But through what we've just done now, we've allowed Magpie to borrow at LIBOR plus 0.1%. So what does that mean? That means that Magpie just made a cost saving. They just made cost savings of 0.4%. So Magpie is literally, by doing this, Magpie has saved 0.4% because they wanted LIBOR plus 0.5%. Okay, and through this, they're borrowing at LIBOR plus 0.1%. So they've made cost savings of 0.4%. Okay, so now let's look at Frush. So now let's look at Frush PLC. So Frush PLC, right, so we're making them borrow LIBOR plus 1.2%. Okay, that's fine. So LIBOR plus 1.2%. That's our first bit. Okay, what's going out? 6.1% is going out. So we're adding what's going out, we're taking away what's coming in. So 6.1% is going out, add 6.1%, add 6.1%. What's coming in? LIBOR is coming in. So take away LIBOR. Take away LIBOR. So what's the net cost, overall cost? So we've got LIBOR, but we're taking away LIBOR. So these cancel out. So LIBOR are gone. And we've got 6.1% plus 1.2%. How much is that? That equals 7.3%. But what did they want to do initially? Initially, they wanted to borrow fixed 7.8%. But in actuality, they're borrowing fixed 7.3%. So what are their cost savings? Their cost savings, they've just made cost savings of 7.8, what they wanted, minus what they got, 7.3. How much is that? I think 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 0. So they made 0.5% savings, 7.8 minus 7.3. Don't want to mess this up. Yep. So they've literally, so Frush PLC, just by doing this is basically called an interest rate swap. So this whole thing is called an interest rate swap. And Frush PLC has just made a cost savings of 0.5% just by doing this. Magpie's made savings of 0.4%. Frush has made savings of 0.5%. And the bank, okay, or the financial intermediary, well, they've won 0.2%. You know, just through 0.2% savings or a profit or whatever, just because they were involved. 6.1% minus 5.9%. So 6.1 going in, 5.9 coming out. They've made 0.2%. So if we just look at it as total savings from the interest rate swaps, the total savings are Magpie, savings of 0.4, Frush, 0.5, so that's 0.9, add the 0.2, total cost savings, 1.1%. And it's kind of a hard concept, but you just sort of have to memorize the way you do it. I think it should make sense, honestly. Like, and then question three is literally the exact same thing. Question 3 is the exact same thing. So I'm hoping if it comes up in the exam, just by seeing it, you're going to know what you have to do. So that's the diagram. We've written what Magpie wanted. They told us in the paragraph what Magpie wanted. They told us in the paragraph what Frush wanted. Okay, but we forced them to borrow at 6 because 6 was less. We had to, financial efficiency, they had to borrow at 6. Frush, that means had to do the LIBOR. 6.1% is going out and the 5.9% is going out. The bank's making winnings. And then LIBOR is the opposite arrows. And then that's it. Magpie makes savings, don't they? Because they wanted to borrow, they wanted LIBOR plus 0.5%. By doing this, 6%, add what's going out, LIBOR, take away what's coming in. At the end, their net savings, LIBOR plus 0.1%, they've made savings of 0.4. Frush, the same thing, savings of 0.5, the bank's made 0.2. So that's it for question A. For question B, we put in calculate interest rate swaps and receipts if LIBOR equals 6.75%. So now we're officially giving LIBOR a number basically. So now we can start working with actual numbers, 6.75%. So we'll do that after. So that's the diagram pretty much. Just zoom in a bit, yeah.